I would see this man work from like, let's say 7 a.m. to 6 a.m. Sleep for an hour. His girlfriend would bring him McDonald's or something, and he would ask me to come by and bring him a coffee. And then he'd wake up the next hour and just go again, 23 hours. I've never seen anything like it. I was like, damn, all right. Long run, probably not going to work out, but to get this done, like
that's insane.
He flipped his house by himself. I'll say by himself, but I certainly helped, and so did a couple of our other friends, but majority by himself in like record time. I think he flipped a 2,400 square foot place that needed all paint, floors, and all cosmetics, like bootstrapped it all, did it in like 3 weeks. It was crazy.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Moving the Mountain, a creative leadership podcast. Today's guest is Bruno from Epiphany Construction. He does a lot of flips and recently a new build that he's working on. Bruno, how are you?
I'm great, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into it.
Sure. So like you said, I do a lot of flips, and now I'm getting into new developments. I started off just investing in real estate a handful of years ago, almost 4 years ago.
How old are you?
I'm 26 now, be 27 at the end of this year.
So you're like 22 when you got into it?
Yeah. And when I was 18, I started my first company with my now same business partner who I own the construction company with, Marco. I believe you guys met a couple times. I'm sure you did. And from a young age, we kept trying different businesses because we knew we didn't want to do the whole 9-to-5 rat race thing forever. And we failed a bunch, failed early, fast.
What was that first business when you were 18?
First business when we were 18 was called Flipcoin LLC. And believe it or not, it was like 2015 or 2016. We got into cryptocurrency early and still managed to lose all our money.
Really?
Yeah. And then some. We maxed out our credit cards. We took on leases we couldn't pay, raised money from friends and family, lost all of it.
No way. Was it a new crypto that you were trying to develop?
No, we were going to actually we had a solid business plan. We were going to raise money, buy miners, and just mine and work on minimizing energy cost and just scaling out hash rate. Without getting too technical, basically our idea was to like farm Bitcoins and other popular coins like Ethereum, Litecoin, Dash at the time. And we got bootstrapped for cash in the beginning, and our third partner ended up dropping out of the business very, very soon, like before we even bought our first miner. And he was actually the one who was going to bring most of the capital, and we were going to use that to buy the miners. And so when he left, we had to make a pivot. We had very limited capital. We didn't want to give up. So we thought it'd be a good idea to start trading to try to raise money to buy the miners for that long-term income, and it didn't go well. So
how much did you raise and invest in that?
We raised about 30 grand, I think. And it wasn't a lot, but we came from nothing.
That's a lot when you're 18.
It's a lot when it's all you have and then some, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could lose 30 grand on a deal now and it wouldn't hurt. But back then it was like, it took me about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half to like working after that, a 9-to-5, maybe more like a 9 to 2 a.m. because I was serving tables and stuff just to pay everybody back.
Yeah.
So, but we did. Got my credit score back up. So did Marco. Tried a couple other businesses between like social media marketing, SMMA, e-commerce in other regards. And they didn't go too well. We were probably recovering from like our fourth loss, and Marco was split between starting a plow company, like plowing in the winter, and getting his real estate license. And he chose to get his real estate license. I was selling cars at Toyota just to like save up some money until I figured out my next play. And I remember he had sold a house. This was in 2019 or 2018, 2019, I think. And he was like, bro, I sold my first house. Took him like a little over half a year. And he was like, yo, check this out. Come look at my commission statement. Let's have a drink and celebrate tonight. I'm like, awesome, let's do it. Went to his house, and I'm looking at this statement, and it's a closing disclosure. If you ever bought a property, you know what it is. It says how much money came out of the buyer's pocket and went into the seller's pocket. And there's this little line for like the agent commission. Marco was like, check this out. He made like, I think it was like 10 grand or something.
Wow.
For us at the time, that was like awesome. We were celebrating. And then towards the end of the night, we were looking at this paper again. And at the bottom, it was like cash due to seller, like $180,000 or something. I was like, Marco, what's up with this? And he's like, yeah, that's the guy who sold the house he made 180 grand on this transaction. I'm like, we got to do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I mean, if we get into flipping houses, we can do that. So that's when I made the decision.
Is that what that was? Was it a flip?
I don't remember if it was or not, or if he just held it for a while and had the equity, but that was like a clicking moment in my head where I was like, damn, like real estate is making people hundreds of thousands in one day, like in one check.
Right.
And I was like, I want to be a part of this. And I didn't know much. And Marco had a head start because he was selling real estate. So he was licensed and educated and, probably already in like the top 10% in terms of education within the realm of realtors and stuff. Cause he's just like a go-getter, always getting ahead. So he taught me a lot in the beginning. I was like, yo, teach me about this. How can we do this? And he was like, all right, well, first step is buy your first property. Figure out what it's like to be a landlord. You have a W-2 job now at Toyota. Use that to your advantage. So he found a 4-unit for me and I bought that in February of 2020. That was my first property. I put 3.5% down. So it was really, really easy for me to get into the game.
That was 2020, you said?
2020.
Oh, so you haven't even been in this like very long.
No, 3 years and change.
And how many flips have you done so far?
Hundreds.
Really?
Yeah. So we started off with a bang, and I'll tell you how it happened. So I got the FHA loan, and typically you have to stay with your job and do all that. But I decided, they gave me a hard time about getting the loan, and I won't get too much into the details between having a commission-based job and, I wasn't a U.S. citizen at the time because I'm originally from Brazil, so I'm actually an immigrant.
Yeah, we should have did like a little like intro, who you are, your full name.
That's okay, man.
Should we start over?
Oh, we can loop back around. It doesn't matter to me.
You're good.
So long story short, they didn't want to give me the FHA loan. So I found a partner. Mind you, it took me like 9 months between getting the property under contract and just getting the financing down to be able to close on it. And probably at least 100 lenders told me no. Like, no. I would just make another phone call. No. And eventually this guy was like, well, there's maybe one way. If you find a partner, get him to take on the entirety of the loan and you just go on the title with him and split the cost 50-50. I'm like, okay, bet. So I found an old friend of mine who wanted to get into real estate as well, who I was talking to him like every day pretty much. He lived in California. He was serving his last of 5 years in the military. So he was about to finish his contract, and between his pay in the military and his status as a citizen and the qualifying income from the property itself, because it was a multifamily, he was able to qualify for the FHA loan by himself. So he had the advantage of getting his first property also with me as being the boots on the ground while he was just minding his own business, doing his own thing across the United States, like literally in California on the West Coast. Excuse me. And I had the benefit of having him take on the loan so that I could actually close on it. And this was a fire deal too. So it was like, I really didn't want to give it up. So we ended up going 50-50 on it. And still today we own it 50-50. But February of 2020, we closed on it. So really it was like 9 months before that, in mid to early 2019 when I had it under contract, when I was like, all right, this is it. Like I'm doing it now. But we closed on that and I quit my job right after. And now typically when you get an FHA loan, you can't just quit your job after. That's mortgage fraud. But since I wasn't on the loan, I was totally able to do that. Quit my job and I decided to go full-time real estate. And how I started was wholesaling because I didn't have much money after that. I put all my liquid funds into the property. And wholesaling is basically just hunting for deals and selling the deals to investors before they hit the market. So, and you can pretty much arbitrage that in the middle for whatever fee you decide. So let's say I would negotiate, I would find this off-market seller. She had this beat up house, needs to be flipped.
And how would you do that? Are you going door to door?
We tried pretty much everything. We did some door to door, just leaving like door hangers on the doorknobs. Just like, call us, we want to buy your house cash. We did a lot of cold calling, a lot of direct mail, just handwriting letters. I remember, bro, for 8 hours a day at least, I would sit down with like bumping Drake or whatever I was listening to at the time and just handwriting full page letters. Hi, my name's Bruno. I'm a real estate investor in the area. I noticed you own 123 Main Street. Would you consider a cash offer for it? I'm looking for more properties like yours to buy. I need to buy 3 more this month. If so, give me a call here. Hundreds a day, handwritten, the whole thing, stamped, sealed, delivered. And I got it down to a science. It was at the point where I was like timing myself on each one. Like I could probably still muscle memory fold it into the envelope now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get from 2020, closing your first property, to 2 years later, you said over 200?
Probably not 200, probably at least 150 homes between apartments
Yeah.
and single family
So
residences.
how do you do that in 2 years?
You just go ham. So Marco worked as hard as me,
Mhm.
and we were putting in like, honestly, at the peak, and the peak lasted for like a solid year and a half, 160 hours a week, like
160 hours a week?
160 hours a week. Like there was sometimes, I will never forget this. Marco was
How
flipping
many
his,
hours in a week?
listen, Marco was flipping his first property.
Yeah.
I would see this man work from like, let's say 7 a.m. to 6 a.m. Sleep for an hour. His girlfriend would bring him McDonald's or something, and he would ask me to come by and bring him a coffee. And then he'd wake up the next hour and just go again, 23 hours. I'd never seen anything like it. I was like, damn, all right. Long run, probably not going to work out, but to get this done, like
That's insane.
he flipped his house by himself. I'll say by himself, but I certainly helped, and so did a couple of our other friends, but majority by himself in like record time. I think he flipped a 2,400 square foot place that needed all paint, floors, and all cosmetics, like bootstrapped it all. Did it in like 3 weeks. It was crazy.
So he did all the construction for it.
Yeah, him, and then he would like call us. He used to call them painting parties. He would order pizza and beer, like 6 paintbrushes, and call a bunch of friends over. Be like, guys, okay, free beer, free pizza, music going. You paint this wall, you paint that wall. He got creative with it. But through that transaction, I saw him make, I think, like 114 grand on his first flip. 19-year-old kid, or no, he was 21, 20-year-old kid, whatever, however old we were. It all seems like a blur now. And so I was like, fuck, like this is it. Like I got to do this too. And so I moved in with Marco at that time. And I was like, bro, you're just going to teach me everything you know. And we're just going to do this. And then we started doing a couple wholesales. All right. We were making like, on average, I think we made like 20 grand per wholesale. So it was pretty good money. But in the beginning, it sucked. It took forever to get our first deal. And we only made like a few $1,000s on the first couple. But we found out it worked. And so after we closed 2 or 3 wholesales, we were like, all right, let's start a construction company too, because we're going to be flipping these houses and we're going to want to keep all that in-house for the control factor. And also we don't want to give all those profits away to other general contractors. And given our age and our area, people are definitely going to try to take advantage of us. So we hired this one guy, didn't work out. We hired another guy, didn't work out. We just started giving him odd jobs here and there. Eventually we built like a really solid team. At one point we had a crew of like 22 people in-house, just banging out construction jobs. Yeah. And this was all within the first year, well within the first year. So at that point we had the construction company, and it started off small. Maybe like we had 2 or 3 key people, and we were like, all right, every deal we find now through the wholesaling, we're going to buy it. We're going to buy it. We're going to flip it. And we're either going to refi it and rent it, or we're going to sell it for a profit and move on to the next. And because we started off with the wholesaling, we established this really good deal flow system where we knew if we just copy and pasted these same things over and over, we'd be able to reach out to enough homeowners to have deals coming in pretty much on autopilot. So that complemented with the construction company, we were getting these deals done in record time. Like we would flip house. I think our average flip time was like 2 to 3 months, listed on the market, another month, and it's gone, just to close. So, and then what helped a lot was we had some big deals where we were able to flip like 28 homes within one deal. Like we got this off-market portfolio. This lady wanted to sell to us. We got a killer deal on that. Financed the whole thing, put probably like 300 grand into it. This was 28 units total across like 5 different parcels.
And then, are you doing hard money lending for that? Or are you going through a bank?
No, we haven't. We only go through banks for our 30-year fixed loans. Excuse me. But when you do a value add project of that nature, where it's a lot of rehab, and you want to finance the rehab, you're better off going through private money if you can arrange it, which is kind of like what you're familiar with. Like, hey, let's say you have $1 million you want to lend, and this guy has a project, you really believe in it. You say, all right, I'll give you the $1 million, 12% interest, interest only payments every month, and 2-year balloon, whatever. Totally up to negotiation. Honestly, the better relationship you have with the person and the more strong the deal is, then the better terms you can typically negotiate. But for us, we were so new in the beginning. We were looking for hard money. And we found this person who believed in us for whatever reason, probably because of our charisma and whatnot. But he decided to give us a hard money loan for 90% of, it started out as 80% of the purchase price of whatever the deal was. and 100% of the rehab that it needed, but he would only give us the rehab as we completed it. So we would have to like front it and he would refund us basically. So if it was like a 5-stage rehab, 20 grand per stage, say stage 1 was like heating and electrical and plumbing. Stage 2 was like paint and floors. Stage 3 was like exterior. We would have to go and front the 20 grand, complete it all. And then he would refund us that so that we would, that's all the skin we would have to put into the game. And basically he would never be left hanging and we would always have extra skin in the game, if that makes sense.
So with all the properties that you do you try to build like a liquid portfolio, or do you just keep putting your capital into new investments?
Liquid portfolio, do you mean like holding a lot of cash?
Yeah.
Not really. We started at a really opportune time. Like I said, February 2020, I bought my first property. And right after that, like inflation went through the roof because of all the COVID money printing. So I saw the value of cash keep going down, the value of assets keep increasing. And I think we still have that going on today. I'd say like 90% of my net worth is in properties today even. Plus, I don't know, even now, like the lending environment, if you have any merit in your field and you can prove to people that you can, back up what you say you can do, raising funds is actually pretty easy. And like I said, we maxed out our deal flow machine early. So there was always so many opportunities being presented to us. We got the pick of the litter. Right. And so if you had like 4 really solid deals and it would take a lot of your cash to do it, would you do it? I don't know. I did. And it worked out great for us. I do think we've been deleveraging quite a bit as we approach this interesting time.
Yeah. Speaking of, where do you feel like the market is currently at?
I think the market's actually really strong because of mostly like a majority of the inventory got eaten up over these past few years where interest rates were so low. And those people are kind of like trapped in the sense that they don't want to sell out of a 2%, 3% loan and buy a house that's A, more expensive, and B, they're going to have a quadruple the interest rate on. Right now for consumers, I think average interest rate is like between 6 and 7%. And that's for like a primary residence loan. So like if you're going to live in the house, whereas, peak COVID craziness, you could get like loans in the low 2s. Like I know some friends who have like 2.25% on their FHA loans. Like, do you think they're going to sell that right now?
Right.
Even if they want to tap into the equity, they're probably just going to pull out a HELOC or something like that. Because they would either have to go rent or buy something at 8% interest rate.
Right.
So I actually think the market's strong. I think that a lot of sectors are going to get hurt, like commercial office space. And again, this is all speculation. But one thing I can say is this, Sean, I've never tried to build my business off of speculation. I've always just tried to focus on what I can control, which is not the market as a whole, but it is like my marketable skills within this market. So if I can continue to get my cost to build down and my product quality up, it doesn't matter what the market does. There's always going to be a need for quality buildings within any given sector, residential housing, even office space, industrial, commercial, whatever it is. And for me, I choose to focus on being able to build a solid product at really, really competitive prices really fast. And as you know, I focus on residential. So
yeah. So what is your I know you're doing a lot of flips, right? Kind of moving into new builds.
Yep.
Like what's your kind of future goals? Like where are you kind of looking to go?
So I want to build a lot of units that I keep. I want to build thousands of units that after I build them, I refinance on them into 30-year debt and just hold them in cash flow forever. And that's going to be a financial fortress that me and my family and the people who join me on this venture between partnerships and whatnot are able to have as like a really solid foundation to like future endeavors. And then I think I'm going to take a more philanthropic scope to life and really try to do some like bigger, almost like Elon Musk-esque type of things, you know? But like Elon had his PayPal where he had $80 million or whatever it was. I need to build my foundation first.
Yeah.
And
so like, what is that financially? What is that foundation for you?
So if I had $100,000 a month net to me between my apartment buildings, I would feel confident to go take on some of these riskier ventures, especially since I have a family now and stuff. And I don't risk the farm anymore. I'll take very calculated risks and it might seem high risk to the outside world, but At that point, it'll be like I can royally fuck something up, or here's why I want to have that big foundation, Sean. I can do something that has such a low chance of success, but if it works, the good that would come from it would be so high that I can say, okay, I can take that risk. And if I fail, my family won't starve,
Right.
And so for me, we'll get a little technical. The way I want to do it is to buy land and build at 70% or less of what the after build value is going to be, because I know I can get a loan for 70%. Well, let's even say 65% to be really conservative. If I can buy land and build 100 apartments for 65% of what they'll be worth, a bank's going to give me 65% of their worth as a 30-year debt. So I'll be scot-free. All my cash can come right back to me and I can reinvest it into the next one. And I'll be able to infinitely multiply this. My only bar would be like how fast I can hire foremen and laborers.
Yeah. And how has that been? So it's like you've had the team of, you said it was like 20 plus people. Have you scaled back from there? Are you adding to that? Or you have a different approach now?
That's a great question. So that was at the peak, and I call it the peak because we scaled back from there first out of necessity, but then out of like realization. At first, we grew really fast because we got all this work and we had all these properties and we had all this money. We're like, let's grow, let's keep hiring, but it didn't make sense. And so with that explosive growth came a lot of inefficiency, and we started making less money per project, and we started spending more dollars per square foot to rehab properties. And we lost a lot of the control that we were going for in the first place. So we scaled back. I think now we have like 8 full-time W-2 employees and an army of subcontractors, like between all of them, maybe like 20 to 25 subs.
Yeah. So we've kind of found that too, where it's like having having like good managers kind of helps kind of oversee projects and then do the rest with subcontractors. That definitely helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with building wealth, like what is your number that you're really trying to get to before you move into like philanthropic fields?
It's more of like a cash flow number for me. I mean, I haven't assigned a number to it. I certainly have goals. One of my key metrics for me is going to be that 100K a month in pure cash flow. But in terms of like a net worth number, I don't know. And I think it'll change as I go. I think once I hit like $1 billion in net worth and I start doing some stuff that's really philanthropic that works, I might find that I set bigger goals in that regard, and I need a bigger quote unquote foundation.
You want to go billions?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Yeah. Ever since a young age. I don't know why. I just never wanted to do it small.
Yeah.
I remember when we started our first company when we were 17 and 18, Marco was 17, Flipcoin LLC that I was telling you about. Yeah. Every day we would walk into our office in East Hartford, first making sure we weren't getting stabbed while we unlocked the door. And then first thing we would do, we would walk in, we had this big whiteboard in our meeting room, and we would just write goal $1 million this year. How do we do it? And we were 18-year-old kids. And we were just trying to reverse engineer this. And at one point, I think we were really close to hitting that really early. It took us a lot of real estate afterwards to hit that goal. But it's just like we never started off like saying, okay, let's just replace our W-2 income, or okay, let's make $1,000 or whatever. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but it wasn't what we were going for. I think if I wanted to be just a millionaire, I think there's better routes than entrepreneurship, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I met with another CEO who owns a much larger company that I do. And I was like, I think he does like 1,100, 1,200 weddings per year. Damn. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, because when I started, I was like on the whiteboard, 100 weddings. That was the goal. And he's like, yeah, for me, like when I started, it was like, how do I do 1,000 weddings? And so it's like a different jumping off place. And I think that kind of caused him to set up the systems that he needed to do 1,000 weddings versus like the systems that you needed to do 100 weddings. And even 100 weddings too. It's just like, that was like, that's crazy.
Right. I remember when I thought $1 million was just like mind blowing.
Yeah. When you start to get up there though, you kind of realize like, and you see the cost of everything, and you're like, that's really not that much money. When you really look at it, what a nice home costs, it's like $4 million.
Right. Or when you start hiring serious people, like if you want to have 10 people making 6 figures on salary, that's $1 million a year that you have to produce just to cover their overhead.
Right.
When I started thinking like that, I was like, wow. And in real estate, when I started looking at commercial mortgage numbers, go to Grant Cardone's website, and I'm not a huge Grant Cardone fan. I like the guy a lot for mindset and stuff. Anyways, semantics aside, take a look at any one of his last acquisitions and go calculate the mortgage payment on it. And then it'll give you a different perspective on like how much money is a lot of money. When you realize he buys like 10 of these a year, you're like, dang, like his mortgages alone are like, like I think 4 million a month was when I looked at it like a year ago. And I'm like, wait, that was just a year ago,
Now, is there any risk to having like that big of a portfolio where you have all these loans out, and say something did like happen to the market? Is it risky? Is that how like Dave Ramsey wasn't that one of his things? He had a lot of mortgages out on many different homes.
Yeah, I think he messed it up though.
Yeah.
I never studied him really, really a lot. I looked at some of his base philosophies. I agreed with some. I disagreed heavily with a lot of others. He strikes me as a very fearful person. He strikes me as someone who was once bitten, twice shy. And I mean, I don't know. I'm young, man. So you really got to let this play out for like 50 years to see who's right. But in my honest opinion, I think it depends on your risk tolerance and how you manage the risk. Like I'm certain that with my holdings, my leverage, my skills, and my resources, if shit hit the fan in my market, I would be fine. I have multiple exit strategies and I know exactly what to do to cover anything that comes up. If, I can't say the same for anybody else. I don't know. Maybe I'm sure other people are more well prepared than I am. But I think when people find themselves in that position where they're over leveraged and the market churns and they really get hurt, the biggest cause is that they aren't finding good enough deals. They're buying properties just because they want to buy property. I find deals so deep. Like I'm often buying things at 65% of their current value or 65% of their after repair value after I put the rehab in. So, I mean, unless the market tanks 50%, I won't have to spend anything out of my pocket to cover. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how do you find those deals?
A lot of
you're not on Zillow.
No, not on Zillow. A lot of direct.
Did you look at the Zillow properties I sent you?
I haven't had a chance yet. To be fair, you sent it to me a few hours ago, and one of those hours I was driving here. All right, but I saw you sent me a bunch of land on Zillow.
Yeah, a lot of land.
Yeah, it's not that I never look on Zillow. I kind of look on Zillow for fun, just to see kind of like what my competitors are doing, like other house flippers and other spec house builders now, in particular, because you are competing in a market here. A lot of people in real estate, it's funny, they try to like band together. And like you go to these real estate networking events and everyone's like acting all buddy with each other, but that is a room filled with competitors. And if you don't watch out, someone's going to get your money in that room. So anyways, back to the question, how do I find these deals? Well, what we did and we really only took the gas off this year because we have so many deals now, and we're spending a lot of our time on deal management and meeting really cool people like yourself and just expanding our networks. But for the first 3 years, we just focused solely on direct to seller marketing, where we were just like every single homeowner, it's called skip tracing. You would get their information online, whether it's their email, cell phone number, home landline, mailing address, because some people don't live at the property. Most people don't. And we would just hit them with everything. I would direct mail them. We would cold call them. I would text them. We would cold email them. Volume. I'm talking like 5,000 texts a day to these lists of hundreds of thousands of homeowners. And so our phones would be off the hooks. We would just be nonstop going to appointments. If I pulled up some of my calendars from last year, you'd see it. It was like phone call from like 9 to 10:30. This is all with quote unquote motivated sellers. And then from like, I'd have lunch or whatever. I'd go to the gym. And then from like 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., it was just appointments, walking through houses. And we got so good at our craft. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to come off as arrogant. I still have a lot to learn. Everybody does. But we got really good at calculating rehab costs and calculating after repair value that we could make an offer on the spot for people. I'd bring my little briefcase with a couple pens and a couple of blank contracts. I would walk through, I'd build massive rapport with the owner, and I would study sales like nonstop and negotiation. And then at the end of the walkthrough, I'd write a contract right there and I'd be like, here's my offer. I can give you $122,486.16. Do we have a deal? And I'd stick my hand out. And then at that point, it was just like, how good are you at sales? Is the client closable? Whatever. But I mean, you do 10 of those appointments a day, between me and Marco, you can see where these numbers come from.
Yeah. What was your closing rate out in the field doing that?
My closing rate was, I don't know. If I had to guess, we tracked a lot of KPIs, but closing rate wasn't one of them. We tracked mostly our marketing KPIs, like how many leads we had to reach out to get a deal, how many appointments we had to go to, what the cost per deal was on the marketing side. But I'd say my closing rate was probably around like 35%. On the first contact, probably like 15 to 20%, but a lot of follow-up. And the money was really in the follow-up.
Yeah. So you're trying to be in that 65%, 70%. Yeah, that's so
Quite
you
the
want to make
discount.
30% on the deal.
I want to buy
Essentially.
into 30%, and then I want to create more value as I go.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. We bought a 28 unit portfolio a couple of years ago. This was in Killingly, Connecticut, the same town that we're building our spec house in.
Mhm.
And this
By the way,
lady,
it was a nice neighborhood.
It
Like,
is.
this is a good spot.
a bunch of new builds there,
Yeah.
all of them sold at much higher than what we're projecting our sale at. We like to be very, very conservative, and we love to overpromise and underdeliver. But nonetheless, we got these 28 units. I cold called this lady. I had to try like 8 different phone numbers, and the 8th one she picked up. I'm like, hi. I was almost surprised she picked up. I'm like, hi, drove by your duplex. Would you consider selling it? It looks like it needs some work. I have a construction company. I would love to make it shine again. She goes, oh yeah, I mean, you can buy it, but you have to buy all the properties around it. I own them all on the same loan. I'm like, all right, well, what is it? She's like, it's 28 total homes. I'm like, if you twist my arm, I guess I can come look at them. So we take a drive down there and we check them all out, and they are all like all 28 of them probably needed like $300,000 worth of work total. So, I mean, it was no small task. I'm not surprised that she couldn't sell
They
it.
each needed 300,000
Total.
Oh, okay. That's
So
not too bad.
it's not too bad for me. It might not be too bad for you, but for the average buyer in Killingly, Connecticut, for the average home flipper, even that's a lot. And 300,000 for my company doing it in-house. If you were to hire me to do it for your project, I probably would charge like 600,000. It took about a year for us to flip it, you know, and it was a lot of work. And I'm very, very savvy with saving money on materials and labor, whereas I don't think the average person would be. Regardless, we bought all 28 units for $431,000.
$430,000.
$431,000. I think it was $431,526 or something. That's what I closed her at.
For 28 places?
28 units. And she was happy to sell it to me. She was mismanaging it. It was 90% vacant, first of all. Second of all, she owed like 70 grand to taxes and like a private loan of like another 50 grand. And she was going to get foreclosed on. Her credit was going to get ruined. She was going to get thrown in jail by the town or something. I don't know. They were going to repossess her property, and she just wanted to retire. So she got to put like 400 or 300 grand in her pocket and live the rest of her life happy. I could tell it was weighing on her.
Yeah.
We got it for 431, put $300,000 into it, and they were worth like $1.8 million after.
Wow.
So,
And did you just sell them off?
some of them we sold, some of them we actually kept. We did a portfolio refinance where we had like 3 different properties that we kept there under one mortgage that we just liked them and we wanted to rent them out. And we still rent them out today and get some cash flow from them. So we're pretty selective about that though. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to keep. Most of it's based on like liability, ease of management for sure, and location. And if something's really far away and it was a good deal, I'll flip it and I'll sell it. Someone else can take it. It's not worth me taking a phone call and having to send someone of my guys like 2-hour drive, you know?
Right. What is the most you've made on a flip?
On a flip, 300,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was sick. We bought it one day and we sold it literally a week after for 300K. Talk about buying into equity.
So you didn't.
They didn't even do anything to it.
That's insane.
I know.
That's insane.
It was part my savage acquisition skills and Marco's savage disposition skills.
Huh.
Yeah. And then just timing. You know, I mean, some people would probably call it lucky, but I couldn't even quantify how many cold calls and letters we wrote before I found that lead.
Right.
And I was just so ready to jump on it right away, whereas most people probably would just fallen through the cracks.
Now, have you ever been upside down on an acquisition?
My first flip I ever did, I lost $400.
Oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, felt like lost $400 and a lot of my time and energy, man. And I was on the roof at one point, roofing it myself with a flamethrower because it was in the winter. So we had to melt the ice off, scrape everything off. I have pictures, dude. It's hilarious. I'll show you after. And then all just to make to lose $400. But that was my first one.
That's
and honestly,
amazing.
that was like the catalyst.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story when me and my friend, I never really liked working like a job you had to punch into. So I'd like try to find stuff off Craigslist. And me and my buddy found this. The job was like you had to go into this person's garage and they had a bunch of dirt. They like broke up the concrete and they wanted all like the dirt removed. They wanted us to like dig it out like 2 inches and remove all that dirt. And so it wasn't paying much. It was like maybe like $125. And so me and my buddy Evan, we spent all day like just like hauling this dirt out. He had this old wagon, and when we were hauling it out, we didn't even have a place to take it. We were hauling it over to like a random spot, just like dumping it in the woods. And his wagon wheel broke, whatever this pickup rig was, and we had to replace the tire. That was $30. Damn. And so we were upside down. I asked the lady at the end of it, I was like, hey, like, this is a ton of work. It's way more than I thought it was going to be. Any chance like you could just like give us like a little bit extra? And the guy was like, no.
Knife in the heart. How old were you?
I was like probably like 19.
Yeah, dude. Taken advantage of.
Yeah.
It happens.
It was brutal, but it was definitely a lesson.
Big time.
I'll never forget it. But
yeah, I feel that.
So for someone that like wants to get into real estate, like what would you recommend to them?
I would say get desperate for your first deal. Just do it, whatever it takes. For Marco, it took 23 hours a day of painting and sanding and scraping and eating shit. For me, it took quitting my job and grinding my ass off for years. For you, maybe you're an American citizen. You already got some money saved up. Your parents are willing to help you. Someone might be able to co-sign, or you have a really good realtor. Might be a little easier. Might be a little harder. Maybe you're in Africa right now and you really want to get into the US real estate market. It might be a little harder,
How do you know what's a good deal?
You have to just be grounded in objective reality and don't leave anything up to chance. And don't fool yourself into thinking you understand something that you don't. If somebody tells you it's a good deal, you should have red flags. You shouldn't be going, oh, this is a good deal. You should be like, okay, why? Well, what makes it a good deal? So for me, I judge it on a couple different things. One of them, like I've already told you, is I love to buy into equity. If I can buy into a lot of equity, if I know the property right now is worth $1 million and I can buy it for $700,000, I'm probably going to buy it, right? Unless there's some huge huge elephant or whatever. But for me,
so off the rip, you try to get a deal.
Off the rip, bro, I need to be making money when I sign the papers. Otherwise, it's not worth it for me because I know I can find deals like that. So why would I, if I think something's worth $1 million, would I pay $1 million for it? That thing's got to have some serious sentimental value for me to do that. Like it's got to be a trophy property for me or something. And I'm not very emotional when it comes to business. So that never happened before, probably will never happen. At least until I reach my philanthropic age.
And do you feel like when it comes to just a regular consumer going in and buying a house, and just a private seller with 2 agents going back and forth, do you feel like there's deals being had out there right now?
Yes. I think most people are working with the wrong agent, and they don't even know what a good deal looks like. So they end up just wasting a bunch of time, their agent's time, buyer's time, seller's time, and their own time. But if you know exactly what you want, like if you say, okay, let's say you're a working professional, whatever you are. Maybe you're a nurse. Maybe you just work with your hands. It doesn't matter. Let's say you make $25 an hour. Anybody can work their way up to $25 an hour. I don't care who you are if you're in America. Okay. Put in all the work you can, save all the money you can, and just get serious about your goals. Let's say you just want to supplement some of that income. Let's say you're paying $2,000 a month in rent and you want to cut that back. House hack your first deal. Just go out there and buy something that, let's say a triplex in the nice part of Pawtucket, where you can rent out each unit for $1,500 a month. So you have 2 units giving you $3,000 a month, and you use that to pay your mortgage, and you live in the other one for free. Boom, you save yourself $24,000 a year in rent, and all that mortgage expense, at least a chunk of it, is going towards building you more equity in your house anyways. And you can do that all with 3.5% down. In Rhode Island, where we are now, I think you can do it with 0% down.
I think they're doing like 17.5 right now.
For what?
For a FHA loan.
17.5% down?
Yeah, for first-time home buyers.
I'm pretty sure it's 3.5% down, and the Rhode Island Housing Authority will give you a grant for that 3.5% up to a certain amount.
Okay.
But there are ways to get in with no money. And if you need to get more money, just work harder and save more. Just be frugal for a little bit. That's my advice.
And for someone with like more ambitious goals where they're like, hey, I want to cash flow $100K a month, make 1.2 a year. How do you get to like that level? Well, then you just have to reverse engineer it, like with anything. Let's say there are plenty of different ways to make a lot of money in real estate. But if you really want to do like flipping, like I wanted to do, because I could force appreciation and add my own value to properties,
then I reverse engineered with Marco. We were like, we just have to get in front of a bunch of people who would sell us their home at good prices. What do these people look like? It took us a while to come to this realization, but eventually it was like, okay, we have to get good deals. All right, where do good deals come from? On the market? Sometimes, but not really. Not enough to where we can build a serious business off of it. Maybe if you're doing one purchase a year, sure, you can be patient. But us, we need deals. So where do these come from? It's like, okay, well, we looked it up, and most of these people finding these killer deals were going direct to seller, and they were finding motivated sellers. We're like, oh, what's a motivated seller? It's like, oh, somebody who needs to sell because they have a problem with the property, problem with managing the property, or just like a huge life change. Like they have to move across the world tomorrow. They need to sell their property. Like, okay, how can we get in touch with these people? And then we started researching these various marketing campaigns and ad campaigns online, like PPC, Google ads, Facebook ads. And like I said, direct mail, cold calling, cold texting, cold email, everything. And we tried all of them and we found out what worked. And then eventually we got like 2 or 3 deals and we were like, oh, these people all hang out here and they all have this in common. So we ended up narrowing our targeting. And anybody can do that. But that was what aligned with our goals. If your goal was like, I just want to find a bunch of multifamily properties, I have some good income coming in, I want to put 20% down on all of them, 20% down on all of them, and I want to buy 5 per year, you can just go online and download a list of all the 2 to 4 unit properties in any zip code you want, skip trace all of them, get all the phone numbers, emails, and anything, and just constantly hit these people up and say, hey, I'm looking for more properties like yours on 123 Main Street. Would you consider an offer? I'll give you a fair offer for it. Whatever. We don't rob people. We're not in the business of gouging anybody. We give people fair offers based on what their property is now. And we just look for underperforming assets.
So things that you still understand though that, have built-in equity?
Yeah. Built-in equity is awesome. All right. And it's not the only way to make money. If I can buy something for a fair price, I will too. And typically if something is poorly managed and underperforming, like let's say something's 90% vacant and it's a commercial property, a fair price on that is going to be really low and you are going to buy into a lot of equity. Whereas if the owner could just paint it and lease it up and it was producing a lot more money per year, the fair price would be higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
and what do you think of like Grant Cardone said it, like he doesn't own a house.
I rent right now.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Marco rents.
Really?
Pretty sure Grant Cardone rents.
And what is the reason for that?
When people buy my houses, I make a lot of money. When I buy someone else's house, I'm giving them a lot of money, Right. And there's no huge reason for that. I honestly don't think it's bad to own a home at all, in the slightest. But
because it is going to appreciate, right? It's going to be
absolutely.
It's an asset.
It can be an asset for sure. You can get smoked on a home purchase. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people do. And I told you my motto is like, one of my keys is if your first offer doesn't completely offend them, then you're doing it wrong. Right.
Right.
To me, it's like any home that I would get a good enough deal on to move into and live in right now, I could just buy it and invest in it, make the money and keep multiplying. I'm at a point in my life where I don't really want to have a home right now. The benefits that come with home ownership for me right now aren't as big as just continue to doing what I'm doing and just live somewhere where the landlord can take care of everything for me and I can just not deal with it, sign a lease and move on. I happen to live in a property that one of my good friends owns that we helped him get into real estate. So, I don't recommend living for shitty landlords. That's terrible.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about personal life of an entrepreneur. So you were mentioning, like you guys were working,
stupid hours,
24 hours a day,
give or take.
And you said like you got married. How did you manage that?
It's really hard. I still struggle with it. And I have one beautiful daughter now and another one on the way. In just about like 3 weeks, I actually have another daughter. So, but yeah, it's always been hard. I always feel like I'm not giving anything enough time, to be honest with you, man. I feel like I don't give enough time to my family. I feel like I don't give enough time to my business. I feel like I don't give enough time to myself. But I just do it anyways, despite my feeling. And I try my best. And every year I get a little better and better at it.
But there's like, that's delayed, right? You're kind of like delaying gratification. Yeah. It's not a forever thing. You don't see yourself continue this pace forever. It's
definitely not.
Kind of set yourself up. And I'm sure your like wife understands that.
Yeah, more and more throughout time as well.
Yeah.
It's up to, if my communication skills were a little bit better, maybe she would understand a little bit better now. But she is getting the picture more and more. And I think my personal philosophy, and I was very upfront about this. Like before we got married, she knew I was just a hustler, a hard worker, very determined and focused on my goals. And nothing has changed. You know,
How did you guys meet?
we met on Instagram. I think I like swiped up and I was like, "Hey, you're cute,"
Okay.
and we just started talking. Yeah, a little while ago.
I've always said Instagram is just a dating app.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the story for more and more people our age. They're going to meet on some app.
It's like a dating app that's not like embarrassing, you know? Because I feel
Yeah.
like when you say like, oh, I met on
Tinder
Hinge
or something,
like
yeah.
that, there's a certain like feeling that you kind of
Fair. Yeah. I don't know.
The person always has to respond by like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that, you know?
Yeah, true. I think that's more of like a, I don't know. Maybe some
I just
people feel some
offended,
type of way about it.
25% of the population, but
Whatever, man. They're only offended if they feel that way themselves deep down. Otherwise, they'll laugh it off.
Hmm.
You know, for me, I think it's a blessing. Like if I didn't have Instagram, maybe I never would have met my current wife.
right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
You know, we lived a couple towns apart, but you never know.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for her. If it wasn't for my marriage and my super, super supportive partner, I don't think I'd be able to do everything that I'm doing now.
Mm.
I think it gives me a lot more meaning when I'm there. I get more done at work when I'm working. And also, I don't only have these financial goals. You know, for the longest time, a goal of mine was to start a family and I still have a goal to have a really big family. And she's helping make all of that possible for me.
Mm.
So
How many kids?
I want to have, right now we have one and another one coming. I want to have like 8 or 9 kids. She wants to have 0. So we're probably going to land
No
somewhere in the
way.
middle. Yeah. We're probably going to land in like 4, maybe 5.
She already can't have that goal.
Yeah.
Dang. Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
Things change, you know?
My friend's wife wanted to have, I think, like 7 kids. That always blew my mind. I come from a family, I have like 3 brothers, but yeah, I was like, wow, that's like,
I'll tell you why that's important to me. I grew up, so like I said, I'm an immigrant from Brazil. I was born in Rio.
okay.
My father and my mother came here. My father came when I was born. My mom came with me when I was like 2 years old. So my dad got a head start here, made some money, got a job, you know, under the table work, whatever he could. $100 bill in his pocket, no English. Same with my mom. And they brought me here for a better life. And when I grew up, it was just me, my mom, and my dad. When I was 7 years old, my little brother came along, which is awesome. He was born here. And we always had this really tight-knit, small, but close family. I would always hear about all these other family members I had in Brazil, and I never really got the chance to meet them. Just my 2 grandmothers, my mother's mother and my father's father, they would come to America and visit sometimes. Sometimes like one aunt of mine did and brought her family. And so I got to see them, but I never went back to Brazil. I never met any of those people who were my family. And so here, when I was growing up, I made some friends here in America, and I would go to their family functions and I would go to their like Christmas parties and whatever. And they would always have like cousins, like 5 cousins, 4 brothers, aunts, uncles, like a Christmas tree stacked with 100 presents, you know?
Mm.
And maybe some of it was like the we grew up kind of poor thing. But the other thing was like they had 40 people coming over and bringing presents, you know?
Right.
They would have these huge dinner tables filled with people eating and enjoying themselves. And I always wanted that, you know?
Mm.
I love my family to death, don't get me wrong. But I always felt like I have this vision where I'm like in my 50s and 60s and I'm like this old grandfather figure at the head of this giant long table, and I have like all my sons here, all my daughters here, all their sons and their daughters, and we're just having like a huge dinner party, and we have these all around the world, and that vision lives with me, and I am definitely going to achieve that. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember growing up. I mean, I had kind of a small family, but then on like my dad's side, like my grandmother, she had like a large Italian family. It was the same kind of thing. Christmas, we'd have like the long table in the living room that they would set up, and
right.
everyone would come over, and it was a good time. They would always, my grandmother and her sister would always like bake cookies leading up to Christmas for like 2 weeks, and so it was like a big affair. Everything was like a family affair. It was kind of nice,
Right. So I always wanted that for my own family.
Yeah, that is nice. Kids though, I don't know.
Kids are hard, but
Kids are
very,
tough
very
for me.
rewarding. You know, my daughter's only 1 and almost a half, and it's definitely interesting, but definitely a lot more rewarding than it is challenging. And the challenges are good. Like
Yeah.
I'm growing a lot as a person. So
That's nice too. That like your wife's though like supportive of your goals. Like you can still be ambitious and accomplish things, and she's taking care of the kids.
yeah,
Does she
she's
work too?
amazing. Full-time mom, so
Yeah.
she works harder than me. I'm telling you, man, that's a lot of work taking care of kids.
Yeah.
And she's, pregnant. Like we went pretty much back to back. So for the past couple months, she's been like 7 to 8 to 9 months pregnant, taking care of the baby. I help when I can, but
For
it's mostly
someone that
her.
didn't want to have kids.
Yeah, and she's killing it, man. You'd be surprised. Like nothing can get between her and her little ones and our little ones. So
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Anything else that you'd want to like touch on before we wrap?
I don't know. I'm pretty open-minded, man.
We got the deal that we're doing.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
A little bit different. I went and saw the place today.
What'd you think?
Yeah, so we were heading out in the middle of nowhere for a while.
Mhm.
And I was like, this is a long drive. But then when I got there, I saw the land. I was trying to like envision like how far back it would be set. But I checked out the neighborhood. It seemed nice. I was like, this is a nice little neighborhood here. It's a good spot. How did you find that plot of land?
So we had been trying to do our first spec house for like 6 months before we bought that land. And we had like 8 pieces of land under agreement because we were just like, I mean, I'm sure you can tell by now, we're like go big or go home type of people. And we were going to build on all 8 of them. But we learned really fast through that experience what it takes to actually build on a piece of land, how to get the financing for building on a piece of land, how to get permits and approvals and everything. And about 7, I think all 8 of them actually fell through. Some because of financing, people didn't want to lend to us. Some because of just because we have never done like a spec build, even though all the flips we did, that didn't count at all to them. We were like, all right, so we got to scratch these because we can't close in time. Lost our deposit on most of them. Some of them we lost. We couldn't close on because of the Department of Health. They were like, yeah, it takes 4 months to get the soil sample back before we can tell you if we could build on it or not. So you're gonna have to buy the house or get a 4-month extension, and then we can tell you. I'm like, no seller's gonna want to do a 4-month extension, and we're not gonna buy the land for $100,000 and then find out we can't build on it. Like, no
Right.
thanks. And then we found this one, which was the last buildable lot on that nice subdevelopment, where we knew it was going to be a buildable lot. We didn't have to get the lot permitted. We knew that there was water and sewer hookups right there, so we didn't have to do a septic system or a well. And we knew that the electrical was right off the road. My electrician could hook it up nice and easy. And it was like, honestly, the perfect first one for us to build on.
I have noticed that when I've been wanting to build a house for like a long time. It's probably 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is a long time. It's a long time to me. But that's how, when I look at land, it always seems, the impression that I get from reading land listings is like, buyer beware.
Yeah.
Like,
Do your own
you
due
could
diligence.
do your own due diligence. This might not be buildable. And it's just like, so do you buy the land and then you have to find out if you can even build on it? Do you go down, where do you even go
Right.
to find out before you make an offer? It's like, they don't make it very advantageous to build. And there's certainly no direction of like, and then you talk to a real estate agent, like, hey, like, no one
No
knows,
idea.
no one wants to deal with a new build. No one wants to sell land. It's like, I don't know if it's because it's not profitable enough. Like, hey, I'd rather sell you a $400,000 house versus this $50,000 piece of land. Like, don't waste my time. Is it any of that? Is it all of that? Is it some
It's
of that?
some of that. I think most of that is a lot of people just kind of being idiots. Like in any profession, it's like the top 10% know everything and the bottom 90% know nothing. Realtors are no exception. In particular, realtors that list land.
Not Kevin, though.
Not Kevin, my boy
Not
Kevin
Kevin.
Peloso. Let me tell you, not Marco either. He's a good one. But let me tell you this. Real estate developers as a whole, most people think developers are people who build on land. Not really. What developers do is they take raw land and they develop the land to make it buildable, and then they sell those lots to builders. Me, as you can tell, I want to be the developer and the builder. So I have all that control and all that profit to make. But the reason why a lot of this land doesn't sell is they're marketing it to potential homeowners and builders instead of developers. Whereas they should say, hey, clear this lot, put a driveway on it, connect the water and sewer, and you can sell it for twice as much as what it's listed for. Only, looking for developers. And that really should be what they go for. But instead, they're like, build your dream home. And it's like, honey, I'm going to wait 6 months to find out if I can even build a house here, let alone my dream home. They might just tell me I can build a 3-2 cape on it.
Right.
It's crazy. If you just go through the entitlement, or like, I'll say it in layman's terms, if you take a raw piece of land, you go to the town and you get building permits for it, the permits will tell you what you can build on it, how big it can be, how many bedrooms it can have. If it needs to have a septic system, it'll tell you how big the septic is. From all that, you can pretty much price out any build. And that is a much more saleable product than just a couple pictures of trees on Zillow.
Right.
And most agents won't do that and won't recommend their clients do that.
And so if you wanted to buy land and build, like what is the best way for someone to do that?
I don't know the best way, but certainly the easiest way is to buy an already buildable lot. You don't want to buy raw land that you don't know if you're even going to be able to build what you want to build on it.
And can you trust that when it says buildable lot?
No, you never trust anything. You always go to the town. So before you buy it, you can get it under contract first, maybe put like a really small deposit, make sure the deposit's refundable, give yourself a due diligence period. During your due diligence, first thing you're going to do is go to the town and say, hey, I have this 123 Front Street under contract. I'm going to buy it.
So does it have to be under contract before the town will give you?
No. And the better relationship you have with the town, it's just people you're dealing with. You know, imagine you go into Walmart and you have to ask someone to help you find a certain item you're looking for. It's like that. Some people are going to have a hard time with that. For me, it's really easy. But I'll go to the town. I'll say, hey, Chad, that's the building official's name of my town. Chad, I'm going to buy this lot. I want to build a 2,000 square foot colonial on it, 4 bed, 2 bath. Can I do it? And he'll tell me. If he says yes, I'll be like, great, let me get the permits now before I close on the land so that I know 100%. I don't trust Chad either. I love Chad. I like Chad. I don't trust him. All right. I only trust the permit in hand. So what I would do if I were you, if you want to really protect yourself and you want to build on a piece of land, get a speculative piece of land under contract and then just give yourself like 90 days to close on it and a 60-day period of due diligence and just say, this sale is contingent on me getting a building permit. All right, sign that contract, give them whatever deposit. If you can't get the building permit, you get your deposit back. Then the very next day, I would go to the town, grab an application, and apply for a building permit there. You don't have to own the land to apply for the building permit. Okay, if you have it under contract, then definitely don't. You can do this if you don't have it under contract, but then if they catch wind, like the sellers catch wind that it's a buildable lot, and you did all this due diligence and you don't have it under contract, they might just go find a higher bidder. So you want to get it under contract, go to the town, make sure you can get your zoning permit, your building permit, everything that you need to build the house. And if you don't know what that is exactly, they'll educate you more often than not, as long as you're not dealing with a bunch of jerks. All right. So leverage them. And then once you have all that, you can close on it. And with a building permit and a piece of land under contract, you can typically get a loan to build the house on it as well. You know, we went a different way about it. We bought the land cash and we raised money just because that's a lot easier and better for us and for everybody. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. But if you were just a regular consumer and you want to build a house on it and you want to stay protected, you don't want to get bamboozled, that's how I would do it.
And so with never having built a house from the ground up, are there any aspects of it that are maybe like daunting to you, or is it just like, you know contractors and that kind of thing? And
no, not at all. I'm not daunted about it in the slightest. And really, we've done full teardowns where we've basically had to reframe like 90% of a house anyways. And we've done full guts so many times that the only thing we haven't done was really pour the foundation. So if anything, I'll be hyper attentive and getting 10 times more quotes for that part. And I've already took the time to watch every YouTube video on YouTube about how foundations are made. And I've read 2 books on it. But other than that, I really have no weak points there. You know, getting the lot cleared is simple enough. You know, I know what kind of machines they use, how they clear the trees, how they take the stumps out. I know how they excavate. I know, I've studied up on the building code, but it was a very small gap in my knowledge that I needed to fill to make that leap. Whereas in the beginning of my career, yeah, that would have been a really daunting undertaking because I wouldn't have known anything that I know now. But now, once we get to the point where we can frame the house, I know everything frame to finish like the back of my hand. So even running all the numbers for the build was so easy. The only phone calls I really had to make was for the foundation contractor.
Yeah, I was really impressed with like how fast you got like everything, like the comps, the phases, like the all the spreadsheets you sent me. And it was like very orderly.
Does it seem like we've done it hundreds of times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, that was really impressive. I was like, all right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, anything else you want to wrap up? Like go with not sure if you're still looking for investors. Usually I have people like end with some kind of call
plug
to action or plug. Yeah.
No, I would say if you guys want to connect with me, I'm always looking for people to connect with online that share big visions and just want to network. You can find me at Bruno Buys Houses on pretty much every social media. Not very active on social media, but I do look at my DMs. If you want to invest in some deals together, let me know. If it makes sense, we'll do it. If not, maybe I can point you in the right direction.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy and very much looking forward to this build. And we got our camera set up over there and we're going to try to do a time lapse.
That'd be awesome.
First ever. But yeah, thanks again.
Dude, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Pretty painless.
Yeah, pretty sweet, bro. I like the setup here.